Hey everybody, good morning. Welcome back. It's a Monday. Yes, we're going to see if there's any updates on the Murdoch case, which is set to go to trial in just 2 weeks. And I've got a true crime story for you today, so stay tuned. Journey here, the Journey Chick on Instagram. Welcome to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the Monday edition. And I'm late getting started today because trying to get vital statistic forms like marriage certificate, birth certificate, death certificate, divorce oh my God, all that stuff you gotta have, you know. So trying to get all that, and it's very costly to try to get all that. Anyway, welcome. I feel lopsided today. Anyway, so sorry, I'll just lead. How was everybody's weekend? I did no diamond painting this weekend. I did cross stitch. I wanted to show you guys. All right, here it is. So it's not much, but this is what I got done. This took hours, guys. Okay, I figured it out. Maybe a total of 5-6 hours I put into it. But yeah, it's certainly time consuming. Let me show you what this is. A heaven and earth design project. It's on 18 count gridded fabric, and I will show you what the final artwork will look like if I ever get it done. It's this here. It's called Chessie. So again, this is how much I have done of it, which is like just this teeny weeny part right here. Yeah. So, but I had fun. I hang out with some friends, just cross stitching, and I loved it. I had a good time. And then I worked some more on my crochet cowl. I got into my favorite color finally. I've gotten the 10 rows done, but I want to make it 20 rows. Look how pretty that is turning out. It's gonna be gorgeous. When I get done with the 20 rows, I'll be able to put it on my head. So I am back working on the diamond painting this morning. We'll put this over here. So I'm done. I'm almost done. I'm almost done with the one section. Started on section 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, I want to do 7 sections a week, and I'm almost into section 2 now. Starting the gold here. You can't see what I'm doing. Let me put my credit card away because I had to give that to the vital statistic people. Let me show you where this is at. I'm sure I showed it on Friday, but then I've been sitting here this morning on the phone working on this. Here we go. We will turn off the light pod, and I'll show you what I have so far. So this is where I was working this morning, here, and then I started the gold here. This is like the tail feather of the dragon. Pretty cool, huh? What is that outside? They're sweeping the streets? What? Am I paying for that? Oh my God. Why? There's no snow. I don't think we're expecting any snow. I don't know what he's doing that for. My job is not to ask questions, right? That's not my job. Anyway, I have a true crime story for you today because this is the place where I cover live trials. There's no live trial, and I haven't even looked on YouTube today. I don't know if there's any that are starting today. It doesn't look like it. Let me just go to trials, courts. We can go to courts. Yeah, lots of stuff about the Idaho suspect Brian Koberger. Nothing new to report on that, though. He's due back in court on the 12th, which is Thursday. I will make sure that I cover that. If you want me to cover it live, I can. That'd be fun. It's not a big deal, the hearing, though. It's just a status hearing, so I don't know that it'll be a wealth of information. So I'm not sure I want to cover that live, but I'll cover it for you, and I'll tell you what happened there. But so is everybody else. They're all going to tell you. Anyway, it's okay. So I'm going to give you a true crime story today. The story about Ernest Christie. This man was the definition of evil. If you look up evil in the dictionary, there should be a picture of Ernest Christie. This story originates out of Eureka, California, which is on the coast of California, like way up north on the coast, just below the border of Oregon. So he's living there. He meets a 16-year-old woman named Claire Louise. At the time he meets her, he is 23 years old. And he would prowl the high schools for, anybody that would fall for his charms. He had little blonde hair, drove a motorcycle, the bad boy type, good looking. So he meets Claire Louise, who at the time was 16, and she fancies him, and they eventually get married and have Ernest Christie the third. Now, Ernest Christie that I'm speaking of was a junior. There was a senior, Grandpa Ernest Christie, who they called Ernest. Ernest Christie the second, junior, they called him Ernie. And Ernest Christie the third, they called Sam. And Sam has a very interesting story. So you fast forward into 1988, in April of 1988. This woman goes missing. Her name was Sandy Turpin. She goes missing. And they have this huge investigation. At the time she goes missing, she is 27 years old. And she is, people always say it, she would light up a room. She had a bubbly personality. Everybody loved her. She was a total sweetheart. And when she went missing, everyone in the community missed her and reported her missing, and they all looked for her, and there was an extensive search, and eventually the case goes cold. They cannot find this woman. Can't find her. So in 2010, Sam Christie the third, son of Ernie and Claire, comes forward and starts to tell his tale. And what a tale this man has. Because now he's in his 30s, or bordering on 30 years old. He's living on the east coast of the country. He's moved away. He talks about the trauma that he went through growing up under Claire and Ernie. One of his earliest memories is when he was 3 years old. He remembers being in an oven. What? An oven. And his father letting him out of the oven and then telling him, you will not speak until you're spoken to, and if you speak out of turn, next time I'm going to turn the oven on. What? He was terrorizing that child. Then the next memory he has was when he was 4 years old. His father was beating his mother, which he liked to do. That was his thing. He liked to beat women. He was beating his mother, and so he went after his dad with a knife. And his dad took the knife away from him, chased him. He ran from his dad, chased him underneath the dining room table, and slammed his head up against the wall and forced his mouth open and put the knife in his mouth and said, if you ever do this again, I'll cut your throat. So this man was not a nice person. Ernie was not nice. Then when Sam was 5 years old, there's an accident. a boating accident. Now, his father was a commercial fisherman. I need to be diamond painting while I tell you this story. His father was a commercial fisherman. So he had a boat, and his mother liked to go out and fish as well. That was their thing. They'd go out and fish together, and they'd drop him off at Grandma and Grandpa's house, Ernest, at his wife's house. Lena was the grandma's name. And Mom and, Claire and Ernie would go out for dinner, and then the next day they were going to go fishing. And poor little Sam, he thought, oh my God, something's going to happen. No, one of you's not coming home tomorrow. Don't go, don't go. And he pleaded with him, don't go. And they're like, oh, don't be ridiculous. Nothing's going to happen. We're just going fishing. And so the next day he remembers being in his grandma's kitchen, and she had the radio on. She was using the radio to make her biscuits rise. Because at the time, this is back in the day when they had these transistor radios, and when you had them on, they heated up. And so she turned the radio on, and she would put the biscuits on top of the radio to cause them to rise. So he overheard on the radio that they were looking for a boat called the Fame L, which he knew to be his father's boat. So they said that the radio had said there'd been an accident, and they were looking for this boat. They were looking for survivors. So his grandmother and his grandfather were notified that Ernie had survived, but not his mother Claire. But he did not know that. Nobody told him. So they're going down the next day later on that day to pick up the survivor, and he is wondering, is it, geez, I hope it's my mom that survived and not my dad, because Dad terrorizes me and beats Mom. But he gets there, and they walk in, and there's Dad. And he was afraid that his dad may have seen the disappointment on his face, so he runs straight to his dad and he gives him a hug. And so anyway, what happened in this boating accident, according to Ernie, what happened was that they were in the cabin of the boat, and they hit like this errant, turbulent wave rolled the boat over, so they capsized, and they were forced into the engine room to get air, a pocket of air in the engine room, and decided at some point to swim to safety. Or the father recalls the mother being, Claire being in this engine room with him, and she kept saying she sees the light and she's seeing Jesus, and he's thinking, oh my God, what's she talking about? So next thing he recalls is being rescued. Well, according to the rescuers, they checked 90% of the boat and could not find this woman. They rescued him, couldn't find Claire, and the engine room was locked. Now, no one locks their engine room. It doesn't come with a lock. You don't put a lock on it. But his father had a locked engine room. So his in-laws, Claire's parents, really thought that, he probably locked her in the engine room, and then the boat capsized, and, I don't know. Or they went into the engine room to get air, and he left and locked, who knows. But Claire's body is never recovered. Never, to this day. So Sam is raised by his father, and his father literally terrorized him. Pretty much, the way I just spoke about it, and one of the things that he liked to do was bring home women from the bar, from the high school, wherever he could meet a woman. And at one point when Sam was growing up, he even taught Sam how to commit date rape. He told him how to position the woman so that she couldn't fight back, and this is what they wanted. And he just thought, oh my God, this is horrendous, and he told his father he would never do that. And his father said, well, I'm going to beat the gay out of you. thinking, oh, he must be gay because he doesn't want to learn how to get with a woman. I mean, this poor kid, poor kid. And now I've got plastic under my drills here. 1 second. Okay. Oh, it didn't affect most of them. Okay, we're good. Let me just cut that off. All right, we're good. Okay. So he's growing up with Dad. Dad locks him in his room every night so he can't get out. And he's in his room and he can hear Dad beating the women, and just really, really terrible. So what happens in 2010 when he comes forward, you know, he grows up with Dad bringing home these women, beating the women, and there's way more to the story, but he lived at home till he was 23 years old, and then meets a woman and they decide to get married, and he moves to the East Coast. And he was so traumatized by everything that he went through and stuff that I'm going to tell you, that he did not feel free to speak about any of this until after his father passed away in 2006. It still took him 4 more years before he came forward and said, here's what happened. First, to this missing woman, Sandy Turpin. Sandy Turpin, like I said, 22 years by the time Sam comes forward in his 30s to say, I know what happened to her. His father kidnapped Sandy Turpin and kept her tied up in his bedroom. And he would feed her, and then he would beat her every night. And, you know, Sam would say he'd come in and he'd see blood on her, and just terrible. And then eventually, you know, he said she kept looking worse and worse and worse. And Sam never felt free enough that he could break away from his father, because he thought that his father would seek him out and kill him. So he never spoke about what his father did, or, you know, rat him out or help these women. He just would get locked in his room at night, you know. So this woman, she's looking pretty bad. And Dad is not doing anything to help her. He's just beating her every night. So one night, Sam comes home and she's unconscious. And he says, all right, bring the car around. Get me a blanket and bring the car around. So he gets his dad a blanket. Dad covers her up in the blanket and puts her in the trunk of the car. Then they drive to a wooded area and they drop her. Well, first he leads her up against the car and he tells his son, turn around. And he said, my dad had something equivalent to a mortar and pestle, and he had a pestle, you know, and he had it in his hand, and he told him to turn around. And his thought is that he probably hit her with it, and he heard her moaning and then nothing. So after that, they carried her to a ditch, put her in the ditch, put tires on top of her, and then his father, Ernie, had Sam light it on fire. And then he says to him, I guess you're not going to forget this one. So at this point, he's thinking, okay, now my dad's going to kill me. He thinks I'm going to talk. He's going to kill me. And this went on for like a year. He thought his father was going to kill him. His father wouldn't let him sleep in his bedroom. He made him sleep on the couch. He would wake him up in the middle of the night, and his father would be sitting in his chair in front of him with a shotgun in his lap and say, I haven't decided whether I'm going to kill you or not. At one point, he said, okay, I've decided. And he put him in the truck, and they drove to the boat that he had, the commercial fisher boat, and he made him get in the boat. And finally, and he started beating on him. He said, I want to know who you told. Who did you tell? Who did you tell? And he kept telling, he said, for 6 hours, my father beat me, trying to get me to tell him who I told. I hadn't told anybody. So eventually, he's had enough. And he just turns on his father and said, listen, I'm done. I'm the only person that's ever supported you. I've never given you up. I've had it. Stop it. And as soon as he confronted his father backed down. And left him alone after that. craziest thing. Just left him alone. He was getting much bigger than his father at this point. I mean, Sam was growing up to be a big guy and bigger than his dad. And at this point, he turned on his dad and just said, enough. I've had enough. Stop it. And so he did. But so Sam comes forward in 2010 and tells this story to the police. And they confirm his story. He takes a map. He draws them the directions of how to get to where they dumped the body. And now Ernest is dead. Ernie's dead. So he never got charged with any of the crimes that I'm talking about today. And lo and behold, the police follow the map. They get there. There's, obviously after 22 years, there's not much left. But they find bones. She's identified through dental records. This is her. Horrible, horrible. But he says, but that's not all. Dad had other women. Other incidents that he talked about were, there was one incident with a woman named Patty, where his dad brought her home from the bar. Patty worked at the local bar, and he brought her home from the bar, and he was beating on her one night. And he shows his son, look, she's got all these bruises. What am I going to do? She's going to go to the police, and he's going to show them all these bruises. And so he decides he's going to put her in the trunk of this huge redwood tree, trunk. And so he puts her in there with some jugs of water, a blanket, some dog food, and he chains her inside this tree. He would take her out every night when he would get home, bring her in the house, have her cook dinner for him, and then the next morning, and then go have sex and beat on her. And then the next morning, he would put her back in the tree trunk. And this went on for a while. And she finally escaped. She dug beneath the tree into the dirt, and she escaped. Thank God. And she never reported it to the police, because she was scared of the man. I would be too. Wow. But police were able to confirm Sam's story. They did find her, and she did confirm that what he was saying to them was correct. Then there was another incident where Ernie takes a woman onto his fishing boat and threatens to kill her. She escapes. Police were also able to confirm that story. This poor Sam, growing up, he was never allowed to have, he had animals, he had dogs, but they never reached, he said they'd reached age 2 or 3 and Dad would kill them. Either because they had peed in the house, or they were crying too much, or some reason, and Dad would take him out, kill the animal, and then make Sam bury the animal. And these are the incidents that Sam remembers, and he's had to have years of therapy. He has a podcast that he does with another woman, and the name of the podcast is Frankly Earnest. And he does this podcast to help women recognize signs of abuse and how to get out of abusive relationships safely. So, he is making good of his story. The police believed, they never pressed charges against Sam because they believed that he was the victim of trauma and had no culpability for any of the things he explained had happened. Just horrible, horrible. And, so he probably killed his wife, Claire, Sam's mom, killed Sandy, kidnapped Patty, and the other woman tried to kill. So, and then later on in life, as Ernie was aging, he actually had a relationship with another woman, and she turned the tables on him because she would beat him. He at this point in his life, he was becoming very docile, and he wasn't beating women anymore, but he got into a relationship with a woman who would beat him. I said, turnabout's fair play. No, it's not right for anybody to beat anybody. I don't get it. I don't. Just walk away. Walk away. Yeah, crazy story. So that's the show for today, guys. It's a weird story. I know, and I hope you got some crafting done while you listen to the story. Yeah, Sam Christie is still around, and he, like I said, he's still podcasting, and you can listen to his podcast, and sometimes he'll go into things that come into his memory, or about his parents, or about growing up with his father. Very, very sad case. Very sad case. And I'm sure he's probably still in therapy over the whole thing. All right, I will see you tomorrow in Crafting Crime Daily, and I will have another true crime story for you. If you have any suggestions of stories you'd like for me to cover, put those down in the comments. Please say hi to me. I read all your comments. And if you think I have something wrong about my facts, please feel free to correct me. I don't claim to be perfect, just to bring you guys some entertainment, okay? Love you all. Bye, everybody.